Welcome to the Stay Paid podcast, where we help agents and entrepreneurs master the latest business trends to unlock growth and create a life of freedom. Brought to you by Reminder Media.
This episode is brought to you by Wix.com. Digital marketers, this one's for you. I've got about 30 seconds to tell you about Wix Studio, the web platform for agencies and enterprises. So here's a few things you can do in 30 seconds or less when you manage projects on Wix Studio. Work in sync with your team on one canvas. Reuse templates, widgets, and sections across sites. Create a client kit for seamless handovers. And leverage best-in-class SEO defaults across all your Wix sites. Time's up, but the list keeps on going. Step into Wix Studio to see more. Welcome to Stay Paid. My name is Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree.
Well, you forgot.
I was almost like, wait. Oh, yeah. Not the old podcast. This is the new podcast where we both intro in, you know.
Yeah. Before we bring on our guest today, we'd love you to take a minute to subscribe to Stay Paid on Apple Podcasts or Spotify if you're not already subscribed. And while you're there, drop us a review. We will read it here on the show. Our featured guest today is John Wetmore. John is the managing partner at Integrity Marketing Group and president of Family First Life Agent Force, with this agency set to surpass $750 million in paid premiums this year. John is empowering others through his leadership, mentoring, and keynote speaking. His latest book, Do More Now, Get Better Later, is a no-nonsense guide to achieving financial success through relentless effort and discipline. John, welcome to Stay Paid. Thanks for joining us.
What's up, guys? Appreciate y'all having me.
John, it's awesome to have you. In all of this, he came on with
all.
bronchitis.
Yep.
Yeah.
I
So that's
do.
a real player
Yes.
right there. Shows up even when
I
he's
apologize. I got the cough drop swirling around. You'll hear, and I may cough.
99% of it is showing up, man. So you're showing up. So I want to talk to you about the book. You've had so much success of recruiting a massive insurance team. I mean, so much premium sales. But you have this book that you've written, basically Do More Now, Get Better Later. I love the concept. Everybody should go buy it right now. Yeah, it's a great cover. But walk us through this whole reasoning of why write the book. And then let's get into this whole idea of do more.
Yeah. Man, I've been, I don't know, like we were talking offline, I think for 8 years, I've had dozens and dozens and dozens of people be like, you should write a book. You should write a book. It's just always, I've always had it said. Timing felt right. I've been teaching on the concept of this for years. It's worked. It's simple. It's what got me out of a hole, is why I teach it, because it's what I implemented to change a very mediocre insurance career for a few years into like a very profitable, thriving one, just from an individual sales standpoint. And that certainly started attracting people who wanted to work with me. And I just kept the same concepts. You know, I'm not the guy that's going to teach off the rip, you know, the 7 steps to sales wizardry. I'm not that. I can do it. I just don't find it as important as activity.
Hey, Stay Paid listeners, as you guys know, we do a ton of content with the folks over at BAM Media. In fact, Luke is a featured creator over there. Well, they are hosting the real estate event of the year this October. You'll hear from some of the rockstar podcast guests that we've had, like Ricky Carruth, the broke agent, Byron Lazine, and the one and only Luke Acree himself. To get 25% off your ticket, visit bammania.com and use code REMINDER at checkout. That's BAMMania, BAMMANIA.com, and use code REMINDER at checkout. Can't wait to see you there.
I love your style, man. Every time I have watched you teach and speak, whether it was at 8% or some of these pop-up events that we've been to together, your style is very raw. It's very just real, which is, you know, you can't fake real, as people say. So it's like, it's very real. And you have this whole thought process of like, you know, working smarter, not harder is not true. For like 70%
I hate that saying.
of the world, like 80% of the world.
Glad I'm not the only one.
Exactly. It's like this whole saying of working smarter, not harder. It's not real. But walk us through why you believe, you know, or hate that saying, why you don't see it that way.
I just think, dude, and I think, why can't we do both? If you're the person that can work so smart you can do well, why don't you also work hard? And then you'll do even better. You know what I mean? I'm just not, and teach their own. I'm not mad at the person who wants to work a little bit and make a bunch of money. High five, more power to you. You know, but what I've learned, man, is those people that can, you know, that say they never miss a sale and they have 90% close ratios and never lose a client. And one, I think they're all lying.
I do too, man.
And two, if they're not, if you look at a bell curve, they're on the far end. And most of us aren't like that. We're not built that way. We'll never be that way. The stats say you will never be that person statistically, So I remember when I got started, man, I'm pretty analytical. I was an accountant before. I can overthink things by default. And I took 2 years to get my license nearly just because who knows what I was thinking about, and I thought, man, I thought I had to be this elite level salesperson because that's what everyone taught. Say it exactly like this in this tone with this demeanor and learn this trial close. And I'm not saying these things aren't important, right? But I was barely working. And every training I went to was like, say it this way instead of that way and you'll get rich. And I'm like, why does nobody tell me if I say it this way instead of that way, but I only do it 3 times a week, I still can't get rich? Why is no one telling me that? So it frustrated me, man.
You know why? Because that doesn't sell. That doesn't sell.
It doesn't sell, which bothers me because people buy the other stuff. And you know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, but I'm so believe in what I do, bro. So I stick to it, man. So I was having mediocre success in the insurance business. I was doing okay. I was paying my bills, but I didn't have a very high threshold. I came from making 40 grand a year. So if I did better than that, I was doing okay. But I certainly wasn't, a top sales guy. I certainly wasn't being asked to train, and I certainly wasn't making multiple 6 figures. But I was watching people who were. And, I met a guy that was like heavy on activity. He got himself out of debt. And he just talked about like being yourself, and I am who I am, dude. We all are who we are. And just that simple statement to just be me and be okay with it, like relieved me in a lot of ways. It like took a burden off of me from trying to be someone that I wasn't. And I started looking at my numbers, again, accountant and analytical. And I figured out based on the activity I was doing, how much I was making on average per like phone call or per appointment. I just looked at my deposits and I looked at my activity and I just did 3rd grade math and divided one by the other. It wasn't that deep. And I learned at the time I was making $17 a phone call.
Wow.
Right. But I was only making like $4 grand a month. Right. But I was only making like 100 calls a week or whatever the number was, 150 calls a week. So when I did the math, $4 grand a month into my calls, it equaled $17 a call, but I was disappointed in my result. I was frustrated all the time. I was still broke. I was quote unquote paycheck to paycheck. Obviously in commission and insurance, it's wildly different because there's no paycheck to paycheck. You might go 2 weeks without a check and then get a can. You know what I mean? Like it's very inconsistent when you're new or have low activity. But when I saw the number, I was like, dang. And then I looked at how many presentations I was making and I knew how long they took, 30 minutes, maybe an hour. And I was doing like 6 a week, so I'm like, all right, I'm spending 6, 7, 8 hours a week presenting my product. I'm spending 2, 3 hours a week on the phone trying to prospect. I'm putting 10, 12 hours a week into like money-making activity, as the term goes. And I'm trying to get really good at that activity level. How do I double my income at the same activity level? Let me put in these 6 steps the sales guy said. And it just wasn't working for me, dude. So I decided on purpose, what if I just table the getting better part? I just put it to the side for right now. Don't worry about it. And I'm not going to eliminate training and things like that, but I'm just going to make it second. And what if I just did 40 hours of the money-making activity, prospecting and presenting? What if I just did 40 hours of that and see what happens? I already know I'm making $17 a phone call. So if instead of doing 100, what if I do 400? Won't I make 17 times 400 now? Like it seemed really simple to me. So I just started attacking it with a different level of intensity. And I had the time to do it. I was making all kinds of excuses as to why I wasn't putting in the work before. And so I changed my schedule. And I started, instead of seeing 6 or 8 or 10 people a week, I started seeing 30 a week.
Yeah, I get out of here.
Yeah. And I started, instead of trying to recruit, because I was recruiting at the time also, but I was only talking to like 3, 4, 5 people a week. And so I started having 30 recruiting interviews a week also. So it was present to 30 clients, attempt to recruit 30 agents.
Wow.
And then the phone calls were the phone calls. 600. So for me, the math was schedule 30, see 20 people at an hour each. That's 20 hours. Make 600 phone calls at a minute a pop. That's another 10 hours. And then do 30 recruiting interviews at 20 minutes a pop. That's another 10 hours. So that's how I got to my 40 for me. And I just tied time to each activity. Each activity was worth a time for me. Like I had a timer on, a little chess timer. You're an attorney and you have things timed. And dude, I went from making very little money. I made the first, so I changed in December or in March of 2015. I made that change. And I sold 460 grand of insurance that year on my own pen with one change.
That's nuts, dude. Yeah.
Same. Everything else was the same, And then what I learned, dude, is like, I got really freaking good because I was doing so much of it and I was still doing the learning, but I wasn't trying to be the other guy. I was willing to be me and who I am. And it was okay to not show up in a suit. And it was okay to speak the way I speak with not perfect English and slouch in the chair and not be mean or rude but I could just be me, who I am at the core. And I just did it a lot more than everybody else. And I did it consistently. And I started climbing leaderboards, dude. And I became like in our company at the time, I became the number 4 sales guy in the whole country.
Wow.
And I'm not the sales guy, dude. And all the other guys were really articulate and salesy. You know what I mean? Like more power to them. And man, my whole world changed, dude. And literally overnight, it was an overnight change. First month I implemented it, I made like 30 grand the first time I did it. And I'm like, why would I not just keep doing this?
Well, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy in the sense of like real learning is implementation.
100%.
Like, you know what I mean? Like 10% you learn from the classroom, if that. I'm just making up that
Correct.
number. But it's really in the implementation that you're truly learning because the real world experience, you're refining it, right? It's like breaking down the muscle. We all know that analogy.
Yeah.
You're constantly breaking it down. Frequency creates the greatness. So walk us through kind of this do more concept. I know it's like an acronym in the book of like, how'd you stumble across it? Like, how did this develop for you to drive your success?
So, I had been talking for so long about, and I'll flash it there. You might be able to see it.
Yep.
I had been talking very long about activity stuff, but it is deeper than that. Like to do it consistently and to learn along the way and all the things that it requires to keep up that pace and to continue to get better. And I didn't want to be a sales guy forever. So I wanted to build a business and be able to teach stuff. So I started looking at it, and I'll tell you the real story, dude. I, Nate.
Yeah. Nate Hoffer.
So I was offered. Yep. I was flying to his event to speak.
Okay.
And I was learning to get better at, I've been speaking for years, but I watch people speak and I'm like, I always want to get better. And I usually get up and I speak, and I'll be honest, I don't prep. I just get up there and I talk because it's what I do every day. I'm like, why do I need to prep? This is what I do. Wow. I can talk about it forever.
That's why it comes across so real, man. It's just laid back. It's very real. Yeah.
So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to come up with something creative. And I had seen Cody and some other people do like acronym stuff. And I'm like, I want to speak on doing more. I should probably come up with an acronym. I'm going to come up with an acronym. So dude, I did it on the plane there.
I thought you were going to say you did it on stage.
No, I did it
and here's what it means. No.
I did. So then I taught. Everyone had heard me say do more forever.
Yeah.
So I think of what the words mean to me, and I'll go through them all in a second. Yeah. And they're at its core what it means to me truly. I just got to look back and reflect on the previous few years and kind of really think about what it truly meant. So I get on stage and I start teaching it. And I teach, to have success, you have to have discipline. And I go through what discipline means to me. And then I teach ownership. And for me, that just means own your shit. Mm-hmm. Like your issues, what you got going on. Like it is what it is. Stop blaming other people, like own it and let's work on it. And then I started teaching on mistakes. Right. And I think that people have to have a willingness to make mistakes. Many people don't. The perfectionists don't want to mess up.
Yep.
So I think that's very bad decision making. I think that once you are okay making a mistake, you have to own that you made the mistake versus deflect and blame other people for your mistake.
There's a lot of gold there. There's like a principle there of when you admit your mistake, you have power over the mistake.
Correct.
When you hide it, it has power over you.
Yeah. Like I don't let Maddox blame the ump for him, a bad call for him striking out. I will not let him do it, dude. I'm like, why did you put yourself, even if it was a bad call, why did you put yourself in a position to where that call mattered?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's well said.
Does that make sense? It was outside. Okay. You knew you had 2 strikes, dude. You could have fouled it off. Get the next pitch. Hell, you could have hit a home run on the previous pitch. Then you wouldn't have had that pitch. You know what I mean? So I think those 2 things, and then it's accepting feedback on your mistakes from people who are better than you, I think is important. And then implementing what you're told to do from that mistake. Right? So I start teaching on that. Then I teach obsession. I think all of us are obsessed with what we do to be really good at it. I don't think that's that deep. You know, you want to be amazing at your career. You should probably be obsessed with learning it, which is somewhat counter to the do more concept. That's why I don't say eliminate it. It's just, I just went from learning activity being learning 1, activity 2. I just shifted them. I went activity 1, learning 2. That was it. So I think being obsessed is there. And then I started teaching on resiliency. Like we all got stuff in life. We've all had hard times. We're all going to continue to have hard times. We're going to go through things. We're going to have business things fall through. We're going to have bad days, bad weeks, bad months, it's going to happen. Personal things. You know what I mean? It's all happening to all of us. So we got to learn to get through those things. And I gave specific stories. You know, my wife had cancer at 40. My mom raising my single mom. You know what I mean? Like everyone goes through stuff. So why are we all comparing our stuff and using it as a reason to not be successful? Because we all got it.
So you see resiliency, just to pick your brain on that for a second, do you see a lot of the stuff just being, we use all of our tragedy as a reason why we're not successful, almost as an excuse? We form our tragedies or adversities into excuses for ourselves to allow us
it to validate ourselves, for sure. You know, and I'm like, why? Especially when people drag it out, you know, and I'm not saying everybody has to be the same, but you see it in like sports a lot. You see people who go through really tragic things in life, lose a loved one, a family, daughter, child, husband, dad, and they play the same day.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's like normal. And I'm not saying everyone has to be that extreme, but I mean,
well, it's all perspective, right? It's like so much of what you're talking about is having the proper perspective. And it's like your perception on things ultimately is your reality.
Here's the thing.
How do
you know how many people expected me to cancel this today? Because I'm coughing. Like, you know how many people in my world were like, you should just cancel your day?
I expected you to show up, John. No,
you should. You know what I mean? I expect me to show up. So that's
the truth right there. It's like, it's simple, but it's so hard for people to execute in life. Is why are you in the 1% and the majority's in the 99? Because you'll actually follow through and show up.
Correct.
Where they will use, they'll use bronchitis, let's just use that as the example, as an excuse for staying in bed or not showing up to the thing. And this is just an example for us, but here's the problem with the world is the world will accept that. Because, okay, if you canceled on us because you had bronchitis, we'd be like, yeah, no problem. You know,
100% you would.
So all of your people will accept that out of you. And that's why having like a true friend or a mentor in your life that will call you out on that BS that goes, no, you should have showed up anyways. Those are the most valuable people in your life because the world will accept an excuse that
100%.
It socially makes sense that you won't show up because you have bronchitis, but the 1% show up. The 1%, Michael Jordan plays in the championship when he's deathly ill. You know what I mean?
100%, dude. And they do it with everything. They'll do it with as simple as, you know, we got a barbecue this weekend and man, I should just not work. People are like, yeah, just don't work. Who cares? Go to the barbecue. Goals? Get them next week. You know what I mean? It's like people do it with every little thing, dude. And I don't want to be around that. And then it's like, if you do it with the little things, what's going to happen when you have a big thing? You know, again, my wife, dude, cancer at 40, she's fine now, had breast cancer, first mammogram. and she went through radiation. So she had surgery first, just took out the cancer, and then had radiation for several weeks. And dude, she went on her lunch break, bro. She worked every day.
Wow. Yeah, talk about resiliency. Yeah.
So I'm like, I don't know, dude. When you have a little tickle in your throat and you don't go to work, I'm not sure. I ain't doing that in my house, bro.
Yeah, what do we say? We're like, oh, you have a tummy ache? I'm sorry, you have a tummy ache.
So, yeah, and then I started teaching on expectations, you know, and I was like, and again, we can break down any of these a little bit more if you want, but it's I've stolen something. You follow Inky Johnson?
Yeah, I love Inky. Yeah,
dude, one of my favorites. So, our kids go to the same school.
Oh wow, okay.
Yeah, so I've got to meet him a couple times, just briefly. It's not like we're buddy, but I say, hey, his kid plays baseball too, so we overlap on the field sometimes. And so I follow his podcasts and stuff, and he worded it the best. I've always said, like, if you think about anything, any situation that you're frustrated by, or any person, think about someone now you're frustrated with in general in life. I'm mad at this person. We had a falling out, whatever it is. It's almost exclusively because of you expected something different of that person is why you're really mad. It's your expectation. Now, I ain't saying what they did is right, but it's your expectation of the situation that really causes the riff.
It's true.
You know? But Inky says, and I put it in the book. I'm glad I heard him say it before I published it. But he said expectations is premeditated disappointment.
Yeah, so good. That's so good.
I was like, dang, dude.
How do you set your expectations then? Like, what do you?
So there's a balance. It's like having expectations, too much expectations of others can be iffy, you know. Or if you expect every sales lead you get, you're going to close them all. Like that's rough. But I can have minimal expectations. I can also have to have some level of boundaries with people too. I just have to be really careful of them, and I don't want to have too many. So for me, mine are always simple, dude. When I'm working with people, mine are I expect you to be coachable and do the things you say you're going to do. And if you can't do the second one, the things you say you're going to do, communicate with me. But I can only handle so many of the third one before I'm done. Like grandma can only die so many times. Does that make sense? So be coachable and do what you say you're going to do. Other than that, I don't have many, dude.
Yeah. What's interesting about what you said there, because it's where my brain went, but you're kind of describing it in the way you said expectations is expectations in my mind a lot of times need to be value-based, like values, because everything else is so nuanced and can be, depending on the day, the week, the external variable that's coming at you. It's like, you know, when will I break a relationship off, or when will I move away from something or do something that's almost needs to be value-based versus result-based, because you can't ultimately control the results, but you can 100% control most of the time your values and what you're trying to represent. And so like you're being coachable, right? That value of being coachable, or, you know, functioning with integrity, or those type of things. It's like a value-based organization, a value-based person is the person you want to be around. And the older I get and the more I'm in business, the more I realize how important that is, because it also is fulfillment. Like you living out your values plays, at least I have found, I'm not positive this is true, but for me, it correlates 100% to my fulfillment. If I'm living in the values that I want, that I believe, then my fulfillment is higher. When I am outside of my values, I'm naturally more depressed or more down, and it's a misalignment. That's what I've seen.
Yeah. So it's, you know, that's kind of how it came about, dude. And so I'm teaching on stage, and Nate has this thing where you write on it and it projects on the screen. I don't know what he calls it, but it's like a little projector thing. You have a pen and you write on the table and it projects up. So I write down the things, I go through the 6 principles. And then right at the end, I was like, I circled the DO and then I circled the more. And everyone was like, ah! Just like it all sort of came together with what they expected.
Oh, that's,
you know what I mean?
Great, dude.
And so that was the start of it, man. That was like 3 years ago. Yeah. It really becoming like a thing that had, again, it is who I am at the core. I live, this is me. It's how I live. It's how I think. It's how I teach. I mean, you come to my office. It's not like I just say this and dude, today I'm back to back. My first appointment was 8:30 a.m. this morning, and I don't have any breaks till 5:30 p.m. Like I'm back to back to back to back. Now I don't do that every day.
Sure.
But on the days I do, dude, I go.
Where you live. Well, how many agents have you recruited onto your team? Is 6,000 plus?
I mean,
over the years.
That's how many are. Yeah, I mean, I've personally interviewed thousands for sure over the years. But as you start teaching it, I'm a big fan of duplication. I do things so I can prove it. I can talk about it from experience. I'm not gonna just talk the talk. I'm gonna walk the walk, and then I'm gonna teach a bunch of people how to do it. So then I no longer have to do that thing, and I can do the next thing and wash, rinse, repeat. So I'm a big fan of like systems and duplication for me. So I was recruiting at a high level for years, always direct to me, always training the agents, onboarding them, taking care of everything. I was my own recruiter. I've never had a hired recruiter that someone else did it and I just did the train. Like I was doing the call. I was posting the job ads. I was pre-screening them. I was making the decision. I was doing all that piece, which means I can teach it infinitely forever.
Correct.
And so I personally was doing, again, 30 a week, dude. I did that for 5 years, whatever that number is. And then certainly more would come and reach out to me. And then I just started teaching other people how to do it. And then, if I bring you in and you decide you want to build a team too, I'll teach you how to do that. Then you start recruiting people. And now I'm doing maybe more of the training.
Yep.
And I might be teaching you how to teach someone how to sell, so it kind of went to a new level. So first it was learn how to sell. Then it was teach Luke how to sell. Then it was teach Luke how to teach Josh how to sell. Yep. And that became an automation for me. So now I have a lot of help on the team. I get way more credit than I deserve today for the team size, because without the squad, y'all wouldn't even know me. I was making great money without what we have today. I mean, I had 50 agents, dude. I was making 7 figures.
Yeah, it's amazing.
So it was great, but the 6,000 is because of the duplication, all the people who also wanted to work hard and implement things and take care of their families and bring people on and do the trainings. And they just copy and pasted the principles I taught. And I'm sure certainly learned from others along the way as well. So we have a squad, dude.
What do you think? I know it's not just one thing, but you are such a small percentage of people make it to where you've made it in the insurance industry. Mm-hmm. And you've obviously have leadership skills and talents that attract people. When you look at yourself compared to all the others that are trying to do what you're doing, what do you look back and go, oh man, I just am, I guess, like Tom Brady, I'll give you an example. Tom Brady on Patrick Bet-David's stage. Said that he wasn't a savant when it came to jumping, running, and all this stuff, but he was a savant when it came to discipline. Yeah. Like that was when he looks back on his NFL career, he just realized he had savant-based discipline. Like that's what he saw. What do you see for yourself? Where do you go, wow, I think it was that was really instrumental.
Yeah. So a couple of things. I would say I've learned, I used to have to Google this because I admittedly don't have like the best. I skipped a lot of English class. I'll say that. And so I used to always Google the difference between discipline and consistency because I really wanted to understand it, because I truly didn't. Like, it might sound weird, but I couldn't grasp the difference. And I Googled it so many times that I learned discipline is the ability to do hard things when you don't have the motivation to do those things. And consistency is the ability to do those things over an inordinate amount of time. I have both of those for sure.
Dude.
I will just go, dude. When I speak and train, the things I hear the most, I'm very relatable to people. I'm not a guy that came into it killing it. I climbed the ladder, dude. I started at the bottom and I worked my way up through hard work and a combination of coaching from other people and mentorship and put myself around others. And I learned to simplify this thing, dude. I don't need to complicate. I like breaking things down and making them really simple.
Yeah.
Again, I can make insurance complicated. Plenty of people do. And I think that's probably the biggest thing that I do well is I can take what's complicated to someone else, and through a series of questions or analogies or stories, have that light bulb moment go off to where in their head it's a really simple solution now. And I got really good at that, dude. Like really good at helping people see things in a different manner than they previously did.
It makes so much sense. And I can relate as in a sense of like watching you speak over the years now of knowing you and watching kind of how you work. I go, yeah, that is 100% it. It's so like what I've seen in successful people is you said it, they do what they said they were going to do. Maybe not exactly in the way they thought they were going to do it.
100%.
But they do it. So it's like, but all the people who don't make it, it's like, it's almost like they didn't even try to follow through on what they said they were going to do. Where successful people, it's like they just tried and they kept hitting the wall and then slightly moved to the right and then the right. And before you know it, they're in a totally different football field, but they ended up with success because they just kept pushing forward and hitting the wall and going, just pivoting just a little bit. And it's like, that is success, but so few people. I just think people just don't want it bad enough. Because this world just right now, the way we live, you know, most people are not starving. Most people have a TV. I mean, heck, they have TVs and cable in prison now. I mean, like literally your life can be so just mediocre and comfortable. And that's death. Like it's literally death.
It is.
To like, not be growing.
It's like people don't realize like the challenge never goes away. Fair?
Yeah.
Think about you're like killing it. I bet right before we got on at some point today, y'all were talking about a challenge in your business. You know what I mean? So it's like, I think, man, people expect that they learn something today, they implement it tomorrow, and it's just do that every day and nothing will ever change. Versus understanding, man, you have to have your head on a swivel and be willing to adapt every day.
Yeah.
Because it's, and again, I can give someone the path how to have success, but I don't know how to get further than I am today yet.
Exactly. Yep.
So I struggle every single day because there's even fewer people that I can look to for guidance. Because it makes, to get to a couple $100,000 in sales, you know how many people can teach that? Like you can get that all in a lot of places, you know, but it's like, how do I get from 200 million to 300 million? I ain't figured it out yet, dude. I'm working on it every day. You know what I mean?
Otherwise I would do it. That's the problem. Blind spots, they're blind. Like
correct. So it's like those of y'all that are struggling, I would challenge you to look at that as a good thing because the struggle is opportunity. The question is, when that struggle comes, are you just going to lay down and let someone else solve it and let them move forward? And that's what happens, dude. Can people just get out of the way? You know how many people laid down and got out of the way that gave me this opportunity, that are extremely more talented than I am at sales, extremely more talented at different qualities. You know, I just think I have a good combination of multiple things, and
you got to be the pit bull. You got to be the pit bull. You got to latch on and not get off that. I mean, 550 plus episodes, talking to so many successful people over the years, you just go, yeah, that is the one trait they all have, is they just do. They do, and they don't get off of it, and they
take action.
Exactly. Hence the sign, people. But no, it's so good, man. I hope people get the book. You are a testament to really what success is, because it's not glitz and glamour most of the time. It's hard work, consistency, that discipline you're talking about. And your book perfectly lays that out.
Where can people get it? Amazon, or they come to your website?
Yeah, so if you can get it on Amazon, which they'll send it. If you order it from my website, which is johnwetmore.com, and you just click on book, we do have the domain also, domorenowgetbetterlater.com. But just go to johnwetmore.com, click on book, and my staff sends them out, and I sign all of them.
That's awesome.
Customize them, sign them. We send them out with a couple little goodies with it.
Awesome.
And so I appreciate the help promoting it, man. It's doing well, and we're getting a ton of good feedback on it, dude. And it's opening things I never saw coming, which is cool. It's creating good relationships and a lot of success stories, man, from it. It's been dope.
We appreciate you coming
on. It was meant to be.
Absolutely. We're going to include those links in the show notes of this episode as well. You can also get those over at staypaidpodcast.com, but we'll get all the show notes on how you can get John's book as well as connect with John. John, thanks again for coming on, and thank you all so much for listening. You can go to staypaidpodcast.com for the show notes of this episode. If you like this episode and want to show your support, head on over to Apple Podcasts or Spotify. Drop us a 5-star review along with a rating. We'll read it here on the show, and the best way to show your support is to simply share this episode with somebody that you know. If you want to get hold of me or Luke, you can email us at podcast@remindermedia.com. And of course, you can follow us on Instagram. We are at Stay Paid Podcast. For this episode of Stay Paid, I'm Joshua Stike.
And I'm Luke Acree. John, appreciate you, man. Appreciate you coming on and being willing to come on again and sharing your wisdom. Everybody go get the book. My favorite for your action item today is ownership. Own your shit. I love that. I heard you say that from stage, saw it in the book too. And I was like, oh yeah, it's so good. Because everything comes down to your willingness to take extreme ownership for your situation and where you're at, and then apply the other things like discipline and obsession and all these things that you need to have. Remember the difference between top producers and mediocre producers in every business. Top producers take action on that today.